So I'm going to be doing the final testing protocol on this blue DSi XL. I'm just going to quickly pull up my notes on this guy, see what I'm working with here, see if there's anything to be aware of. So this is a blue. I don't know the serial number, the battery bay. I also have it written down on this piece of paper, but I would rather be certain. It would be right here. Okay. Board and US no known issues. Okay. So firstly, what I'm going to do is this console apart, just the back shell. I need to confirm that the motherboard, the same as what I have on my records on my computer. The motherboard serial number is how I track repairs. If I, let's say, replaced charge slot, I would note that on the motherboard, not the shell. I don't pair a motherboard with a shell until I'm actually reassembling these consoles. Okay, so what do we got here? 16X16012. Yep, okay. So my motherboard and my shell match my records. So since I'm in here, this will probably be one of the last times I open this up. I'm going to put a piece of Kapton tape on the digitizer plug as well as the backlight for the touchscreen. Now, these came out of the factory like that. There were strips of tape over these two connectors. Hear that Nintendo most likely did that on purpose. I intend to emulate, or tend to copy that, since this is a very little consequence to me to spend the extra time to do this, if it guarantees that little latches won't just randomly pop open. Losing touchscreen functionality or losing bottom screen backlight would be very inconvenient. Remaining tape that I have, I just put over the microphone slot. No real reason other than that's just how I get rid of the extra tape. I'm not going to put the screws back in this back shell, mainly because I note here that I need to double check the R button and the game card slot. So I'm guessing in my first round of testing, those two things were having problems. And I most likely did a cleaning on them, but let them, well, I didn't check them after they were done drying, so I just saved that for final testing. I'm going to immediately go to that before I start doing any of my testing. What I'm going to do is grab my R4 card and load up. Diagnose, or Diagno SE, my software I use for buttons. I am noticing you could kind of see it in the camera. The bottom screen is like a little more yellowed than top. Okay. Alright, looks like the R button is responding. Responding to all my touches. I'm just quickly press these. I'll be in this program again to do this exact test, but I just need to make sure that my repair attempt, or my cleaning attempts actually succeeded. Now I'm going to kind of jump to the game card testing, which again I do on documentation, but I just want to make sure that mine worked. And I'll formally test everything. Okay. Right. Like I might have to do another round of cleaning on this. Okay, you can kind of see how it's disappearing. What I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of pressure on the game card and sort of shifting it from side to side. And if it disappears like it was, not doing it anymore, that means the game card could lose connection if, like, let's just say you would thump it, kind of like what I was just doing. And if the game card disconnects while you're playing it, console will freeze or just simply shut off. I'm going to do another round of cleaning on it. Grab this guy. This should do it. I'm going to check it again before I get too much further in the final testing process. But it seemed to be doing okay. Just needs a little more help. What I'm going to do is grab a little bit of 99% IPA. Saturate these pins. Then take it in and out of the card slot a few times. Why I can't usually test this right after cleaning is because the pins will still be moistened by the 99. It evaporates really quickly, but I noticed that it takes a little while for the pins to actually reset, for lack of a better word. And if it's still having problems, then those will reappear, where if I were to test it right after cleaning, it may look just fine. $99, and my crafting mama. Like right now it's perfect. But once it actually dries, it may not be so. It is 99% alcohol. It will dry very quickly. So I can put this off while I do the other testing, and by the time I actually get to it, it should be nice and dry. That's when I can kind of make the final call of whether it needs more cleaning and I should put this back in the pile of consoles that need more testing, or if I can go ahead and follow through with the sale, the posting and sale of this console. R button, and so I checked the R button and the game card slot. I think they're both good. So I'm gonna put this thing back together fully. Alright. Grab my assessment form here. Be the form that will be included with every console I sell. Sort of a rundown of tests that I do. So, unit color. Blue. Midnight blue specifically, but there's only one color of blue. The shell number. I've already closed off the battery compartment. I'll just copy off my little sheet of paper here. WW459345431. Software version, I do not know that yet. Motherboard serial 14X01. U01026A. Battery life 4 hours 25 minutes. Okay, now go ahead and start testing. So my first test, right here. First test is motherboard and power board, which does the console turn on, is basically what that implies. Yes, it does. Next, tactile buttons. That's what I'll go back into Diagno SE. Now, as I was testing the R button, I already know that all of the buttons are good, but it's going to be the formal test that I'm talking about. I'm going to press each button about 5 or 10 times. Nothing specific, just kind of pressing them. Paying special attention to the shoulder buttons. And volume buttons, which I can just visualize by increasing and decreasing the brightness. Okay. Then while I'm in here, I'm just going to test the microphone, which responding to both me talking and me tapping the microphone. So I know that works. There's another test I do on the microphone, but if it's responding to my taps, then it works. Next test is touchscreen. I don't do in Diagno SE. I don't really like their touchscreen tester. Instead, I use this program I can't pronounce the name of. Mainly because they give you the entire bottom screen to work with right away. Where with something like Flipnote, I'd have to go through a obnoxious tutorial to do this. It's nice to have an actual application that I can just do this in. Did all the borders just fine. Do little swirls. Yep. All of the corners, or all the edges of the touchscreen are good. As I sort of run my stylus over, that is also good. I do have to check something. I'm wondering if I can go through my footage here. Okay. I didn't check to make sure this was a replacement digitizer or a used OEM digitizer. It is a used OEM one. So, back to the testing. Touchscreen works. So now we go to the speakers, mics, and speaker, microphone, and headphone. Now, part of the battery testing procedure is having the console on full brightness, max volume, and since it simulates gameplay and it plays an audio, I usually put headphones in so it's not blasting in my room for 4 hours and 25 minutes, because that gets old. So I know that the headphones work and I know that the speakers work, but I am just going to verify once more that they do indeed work. I've been listening to these speakers since I've turned this thing on. I've had the volume on, so I know the speakers work. Or whether or not, and just so I'm sort of killing two birds with one stone here, I put in an SD card with Gorilla's Feel Good Ink in it. I'm just going to play that. So now that I know the SD card slot works, I'm going to plug in these wired headphones, and I'm just going to take a listen to each earbud. So yes, both earbuds had sound coming out of them. And I also know the SD card slot works. And then just for the sake of it, la 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 la, it recorded my beautiful voice. Okay, so all of the sound systems work. The cameras, press the shoulder button. There's the front facing and then rear facing, both work. For the charge port, I'm going to do this somewhat off screen. I'm going to have the included charger that I'll be selling with the console. I don't want to unbundle it, because that's annoying. So I'm going to test it quickly off screen to the outlet right next to me, and then I'll show kind of what I was doing here. Second. Alright, good. I'm going to grab my charger that I just have next to me. This is not the one that's going to be sold with the console, but it's actually the thing. So what I did is I put the charger in. There's a nice solid orange light, and then all I do is rotate the charger in a circle just to make sure that it's continuing to have a connection. It's not like cutting out if I hold it at a certain angle. It tells me that all the solder joints on the charge port is good, and the charge port itself is not bad. So charge port slot is good. Now we're at the game card slot and SD card slot. I've already confirmed the SD card slot's working, and now we need to verify that the game card slot was successfully cleaned. Remove my R4 and get my little pile of shovelware games that I was just using. Kind of going in there's no real order to this, but some game cards are easier to read on the consoles than others. This is Wonder Pets. This is a card that has, I guess it has the reputation of being a little hard to read on my consoles. This card specifically, not the game, but the condition I got this card in for some reason. It's a little harder to read on consoles that have, I guess you could call it crummy game card slots. So it's one of those, if a console can read this card good, then that means it's usually game card slots in good shape. Okay. 2 times. So what I do, I put a little bit of pressure on it, and then I just kind of shift it from side to side. Okay. Opened up the camera. Which, other than that first insert, it's reading it just fine. And then I'm just going to do the thuds like I was doing before. Staying on screen. I'm going to do that for all the other games. Here's Bejeweled 3. Usually reads pretty easily on consoles. Shifting it. I'm just being extra thorough on the game card slot just to make sure that my cleaning attempt actually worked. Here's a SpongeBob one, which is kind of moderately difficult on these consoles to read. Okay. Dog Whisperer. This one's pretty easy or moderately difficult. Oh, I was pressing kind of hard, so I may have been putting a little more pressure than I needed to. Oh, and then Crafting Mama, last but not least. This one is very easily read by my consoles, so putting it side to side. Yeah, I would say the game card slot's in good shape. I had maybe about 5 minutes for 99% alcohol to dry, which is more than enough. I may test it one more time before I actually put it up for sale. There's still a little bit I need to do here, but I am fairly certain that game card slot is good. I might test it before I put on the rear screw covers, just to make absolute sure that the console is in good shape, or that the game card slot's in good shape. It's telling me that it is, but I just want to make sure. So let me get the software version, which is 1.4.5U. That is the most recent version, if I am correct. Now, I'm going to do a light cleaning. Get ready for the condition assessment. What I'll do is grab a microfiber cloth, sort of drench it in a little bit of distilled water, just to give the outer shell and the screens a quick wipe down. Funny, I usually do this after I do the screen or the screw covers. I'm skipping a step. Oh well, gonna get me a good idea of what I'm looking at here. Console's in all right shape. Definitely the upper glossy shell is in pretty rough shape. Alright, so I'm gonna put on the screw covers. Gonna grab my massive pillbox of screw covers. Got the ones that I like. Mainly just the first ones that I grab because they're usually always in pretty good shape. The rubber feet for the bottom shell are usually worst for wear in some cases, but usually the top screen screw covers are always in good shape. Maybe just a little bit dirty, but nothing that can't be wiped off. 4 top screen covers. There's a foot. 2 more feet. There. So now to re-adhere these screw covers, what I do is just use just a teeny little drop of Elmer's glue. Not even a drop. What I'll do is kind of squeeze this bottle that I have here until it makes like a little bit of Elmer's glue at the end, and then I'll just essentially just kiss the top of these screws. Good old Elmer's glue. Just enough to leave a little bit of glue on the top of these screws. The screw covers don't need much to be held in. They don't encounter any mechanical stress. They just need a little more help than what friction can provide. Because a lot of the times when I take these screw covers off, the little adhesive sticker goes with it. Sometimes they don't. Like there's a couple of these right here that still have their sticker on it, but all the more to hold these down. I'll just lower them in the place with my tweezers and then tap them down with a plastic pry tool so I don't accidentally scratch the shell with a metal tool. Okay. Some of these screw covers have just a little bit of grossness on them, so I'm just going to wipe them down. There we go. Those went on really nicely. Like I said before, I'm going to retry the game card slot, same stack of games. In a couple minutes since I last did that. Here, Crafting Mama. Good. Dog Whisperer. Good. SpongeBob was the one that was kind of iffy. But me putting a little less pressure on it. Good. Gold. Ooh. Replicate that. Good. I say good even though it did pop off. Considering I am putting pressure on the card, that was a little too much. Usually when you're playing this, you're not going to be pushing in the game card. It's just more of these, like, I can usually replicate the cart popping out by thudding it, or by whacking the back of it, but I'm happy with how it's performing. So, I have no problems with that. Oh, turn off. So I'll go ahead and put the back screw covers on. Same process as with the top. I'll just get just a touch of Elmer's glue times whatever gases are building up inside these Elmer's glue, like push out a little more than I would like. Bottle and then reattach the cap. So if I put on too much, it makes a mess. It'll just be oozing out of the edges of the screw covers, and it's kind of a pain to try and clean up. So since these bottom ones do experience some amount of mechanical stress, I will put a little more glue on than I did the top. Mechanical stress being if you're going to place this console on a hard surface, those plastic bits are going to be touching and flexing ideally. Maybe not much, but enough that a lot more than the top screw covers do, where they ideally won't touch anything ever again. These ones look like they still have their adhesive on the back, so that's going to help stick them down really nicely. Oh, I guess that's going to live on my finger until I get to it. Like I was saying, the adhesive's still there. Okay, kind of look at them from the side to see. Yep, look good to me. I'll wipe off the back. Bottom screw cover kind of spat out a little bit of glue, so wipe that up real good. Okay, gonna move stuff out of my way here to get ready for the final condition assessment. So, physical condition of the shell. This top shell is in pretty rough shape. There's these good nicks down here. They're pretty deep scratches, actually. Nothing over the camera. There's a bit of a nick here on the corner. Like discoloration right there. Sides look pretty good though. And as well as the back, there's like one little mark right there, a light scratch. Discoloration around the D-pad. And I see that as I flash my light over it, there's that shiny spot. That's just from being used. Oh golly, I think I'll give it a very good. Mainly because everything else looks so good. So that's a 2 out of 3. Glossy shell is rough. Really, that's about it. Just the glossy shell piece is the only one that's really bad. An odd pairing. Then discoloration around D-pad. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Physical condition of the hardware, which will be all the buttons, screw covers, and the like. And there is some weird damage I'm kind of seeing in this L button. It almost kind of looks like it came out of a mold and it wasn't really cleaned that well. I really don't know how to describe it other than that. Possible that this is this is a L button from a shell kit. I wouldn't necessarily call that damage. It's a little strange, but R button is a little chewed up on the side right here. Buttons and screw covers are in good shape. I do see some really hard to tell with the buttons. I think I'll give it a very good. I'd say those buttons are in fairly good shape. There's nothing really sticking out to me. Button worn. Or just R button. Has some damage. Before I forget, I am gonna check off that I checked the R button and the game card slot. Physical condition of the screens. Now these are just like the actual screens themselves, like outer facing portion, so that's the top screen lens and the digitizer. This is an OEM digitizer. I can see a few scratches here. I'll kind of put my light over it. You can kind of see them as well. I don't see anything wrong with this top screen lens. This is kind of skirting the line between excellent and very good. Because the top screen is perfect. Bottom screen has a couple scratches on it. Darn. I think I'll give it a very good. I don't think I would be comfortable giving it an excellent. There is a few scratches on the bottom screen. Now, I did see that the bottom screen was a little more yellow. This is for the actual screen condition itself. And it is a little more yellow. You actually can kind of see that. I'm going to turn off my lights real quick. Yeah, it is still a little yellowed. You can kind of see it. It's not yellowed as in damage because I don't necessarily see it on the edges as aggressively as you would on a yellowed screen. You can tell that the temperature between these two consoles, or the two screens, are just slightly different. Now, I don't see that as a problem, and how it made it past these rounds of testing is because of just how, like, if I have to sit here and look at it and go, huh, you know what, the bottom screen is just very slightly more yellow than the top screen, and it's not like, holy cow, like one screen is like drastically different from the other. Really just tells me that once you start playing a game, you're not going to see it. But I am going to say that if you are sensitive to these types of screen temperature differences, then I would not recommend this console. But if it were me, and I saw these two screens on a console that's in otherwise fairly good shape, all things considered, and that works, I wouldn't mind it in the slightest. I think even my personal yellow one that I use, this is kind of a tangent, bear with me here. This is my personal yellow one I put together because I don't get many yellow consoles, so I decided to keep this one. I think this one has yellowed screens. Oh yeah, both screens are like reddish tint. They're not perfect, by no means. This bottom screen is experiencing a little bit of yellow. But since this is the console that I've played a lot of, recently a lot of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, it's something that I don't even notice. So, this is definitely purely subjective whether or not that would actually bother you. I've seen very wildly different screen temperatures, and what I do is I just try to match it the best I can. So since there is a visible difference to me, at least I've seen tons of these consoles, I'm gonna give it a very good. just mild yellow bottom. Mild yellow tint on bottom. I very hesitantly use yellow because that can be a yikes kind of trigger word when it comes to these consoles, because when you get consoles that are yellowed, they are very yellow. Like, there's just a yellow filter over these screens, and they look obnoxious. This is nowhere near that. So, final score, everything got a 2 out of 3. Pretty good, pretty good. 2468, which is right at the very bottom of very good. Just 1 point above good, which I agree with that assessment. I'll test the Wi-Fi off camera, because my camera that I'm using is how I test the Wi-Fi. I don't think I've ever had a console fail it, but it's just something I check. After that, I'll put the video together of why I gave it the condition score I did, and then get it to sale on eBay.